I'm Adam Hansen. I've done a few Grand Tours, and you're listening to the Physical Performance Show.
And the winner is...
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by the great team at Precision Hydration and the Physical Performance Show's Learn-Ins membership. I'm Brad Beer, sports physiotherapist and exercise scientist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week, we'll bring you the latest and greatest information and inspiration designed to help you perform at your physical best. And of course, we do this across a range of different episodes: interest editions, coaches' corners, expert editions, and featured performers. And hot off the back of last week's expert edition, episode 258, featuring UK-based leading dietitian Rinny McGregor on all things fueling for health and performance, today you're in for a treat with this week's featured guest, Adam Hansen. And you will need your pen and paper for the great learnings shared by Adam Hansen. By way of bio, Adam Hansen has just retired from the professional world cycling peloton after a 2-decade-long career. And what makes Adam's career so special is that he started 29 Grand Tours, including the Tour de France, Tour of Italy, Tour of Spain, and he completed 26 of those Grand Tours. By completing the 2018 Giro d'Italia, Adam extended his own record, becoming the only rider to have completed 20 consecutive Grand Tours between 2011 and 2018. Adam secured stage wins in 2 stages across his career: in 2013 in the 7th stage of the Giro d'Italia, and then again in stage 19 of the 2014 Volta a España. And off the back of what has been 1 billion kilometres or thereabouts in Adam's legs on the bike, he is returning to the world of triathlon, where he started as a recreational athlete before turning pro as a cyclist, to take on the Ironman Triathlon space. And as you'll hear in today's episode, as Adam shares around highs, lows, and learnings, you'd be hard-pressed to doubt Adam's foray into Ironman Triathlon racing. Adam is renowned for what has been described by Velo News as his restless curiosity, and many of you may already follow Adam on his terrific YouTube channel and know of Adam's incessant tinkering with technology and his desire to improve things. Hence, Adam produces his own cycling shoes, he's building his own Ironman Triathlon bike, and also his own indoor swimming pool. And on today's episode, you'll hear Adam share around the importance of being consistent in your training, the concept of training pure, and why Adam suggests not cross-pollinating the purpose of our training sessions. Adam references fueling and metabolism, outlines key mantras, and challenges us with a great physical challenge for the week. So here is my conversation with Adam Hansen, professional cyclist turned professional Ironman triathlete, 26 Grand Cycling Tour completions, on this featured performer episode. Adam Hansen, this has been well worth the wait. You are Czech Republic based, 7 a.m. your time. Welcome to the Physical Performance Show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, where do we start? I mean, we theme this the highs, lows, and learnings, and it's always nice to get context to an athlete's career. In your case, your career is not done. It's just you've opened up a new chapter. I've mentioned some of your accolades in the bio there, which, you know, are exhaustive. How are you feeling post the end of your pro cycling career? It must be mixed emotions, sadness, but also, I guess, anticipation for the next chapter.
Yeah, I'm really excited for the next part. So into triathlons. There's a lot of aspects in cycling, particularly ultra racing that I will miss, and I already do miss. But I'm super excited to do a different sport. And I did cycling for so long. It's actually nice, and to have that young nervousness at the start of the race and excitement to do a different sport. So I'm really looking forward to it.
20 years it was, wasn't it? Professional cycling career in the peloton, 20 years, or was it?
Yeah,
20 years, just under 20 years. I was struck by the fact that if I did my calculations, you started professionally kind of late.
It was late.
Yeah. Is that because you had the triathlon formative years and then you went into the cycling?
Well, I was doing triathlons before, which is true, but I just wasn't good enough to be a professional cyclist. So a lot of athletes, especially in cycling, they turn pro like around 19 to 22. And for me, I wasn't really into professional cycling then, 100%. And also, so I did start late there, but I also started late to turn pro. And I just kept going and believed if I improved every year, then I will make it one day regardless. And there's no breaking point on what year that you have to, turn pro. And
so you saw year-on-year improvements in obviously results, but also I imagine you were, being the analytical mind you are, you're also taking note of some of your testing scores. Yeah, it was actually more on the training results I was improving every year, not necessarily results. And what I found was the results followed that. And my idea was, because I had a lot of people saying, yeah, but you didn't make it. You didn't make that age gap where as a neo pro to turn pro. For me, it was like, yeah, but if I improve every year physically, I still do one race a year with the pros. And if I come up to their level and I can show myself, then it doesn't matter what's happening around. Just the only thing important is how I improve every year with my physical capability. And what was driving you as a young Adam Hansen? I've heard you say that your cycle leg in the triathlon wasn't your best leg. You probably were a better runner and swimmer. So for someone that initially didn't necessarily see a future on a bike, what drove you to keep making that hard slog year on year until you did crack the code? Yeah, I really enjoyed the cycling lifestyle in Europe, where there's so many races throughout the year and you get to travel so much, the experiences. And cycling, it was a bit easier in cycling because let's say you do Ironman professionally, you only do 2 or 3 races a year, where if you have a bad race or something, then it's such a long period to have a good race and have that next positive feed of a good result or something. Where in cycling, if you have a bad race, it's okay. You can try again the week after and the week after following that. And for me, it was more, I just really enjoyed it, and it's something that I really wanted to do. Were there any cycling heroes that you were looking up to through those formative years? I mean, at that stage, Australia was starting to really press its stamp on the world peloton with some success. Were there any mentors that you had going through? Yeah, but Robbie McEwen was a huge fan of him. I remember, I was starting cycling in my amateur days in Austria, and they had this every year. The Tour de France criteriums at the end after the tour. And, Robbie, Hank Vogels, Nick Gates, all these guys, they would come and do this show race. And for us, it'd be like, the biggest opportunity we get to race with these guys. So it'd be like a full race for us to show ourselves. And these guys, they'd do the huge Tour de France, super tired, and come around and, flog us. But watching these guys ride and race and actually be part of that. And because you see something on TV, but when you actually ride with them, it's like, wow, they're on a totally different level. And at that stage, could you ever have foreseen what your career would be? You hold the record for the most Grand Tours consecutively ridden at 20, and then the end number was 29, of which you finished, I think, 26, only a couple of DNFs across 29 Grand Tour appearances. Could you have imagined what was in store for you, Adam? No, never. I always look back at my career and I wouldn't change a single thing. I never imagined I'd do the Tour de France. I never imagined I'd do it so many times or so many Grand Tours or be so consistent over my career. I never ever thought that could happen to me. We've had a few real incredibly, gifted athletes, gifted obviously not just in the talented sense, but gifted in all ways, work ethic and everything on the show in the past, who have had great longevity. Abdi Abdirahman, who qualified for his fifth Olympic Games in the US team at last year's marathon trials in the US. Bernard Legat. These are athletes still going very strong in the running scene into their fourth decade. What do you feel has given you such consistency? Like, to do things that no one else does, you've got to be put together differently. Is it your psychology? Is it your physiology? What is it about Adam Hansen?
I think for me is, taking care of your body is probably the number one thing, and be really consistent with your training. I think this is a major key, and just going back and really taking care of your body. So this is, doing specific core trainings more regularly, non-specific bike trainings, nutrition, your diet, definitely that.
You strike me as, and we want to explore some of those there if we can, Adam, but you seem to be a lifelong learner, a student, always testing, measuring. I've heard you say that, never just sitting with the status quo. With those various components of your longevity, if we can just explore them, core training, is that something that you've figured out your own sort of rhyme and rhythm to, or is that something that you've been prescribed in the past through practitioners you've worked with over the years?
Yeah, it's a mixture of both. I think, every time I do see a practitioner, every time I do see a doctor, I always ask 1,000 questions. And it's just a time to absorb information. A little joke we have in the cycling team for last year, every night at a Grand Tour, the doctors would do a round, and also the physios, just to see how the riders are, the health, the shape and that. And they would always do my room last because they knew I'd always have like 5 or 10 questions for them. And even I even had a teammate that says, yeah, but you asked the same questions to the last doctor. And for me, it was like, yeah, because he would have a different answer. And even if but it's true, even if someone is wrong, you can learn a lot from their wrongness. That's something I really believe in. And everyone has a different, angle of attack. And for me is, if I can learn, how that practitioner or doctor does things that way, and another one does it a totally different way, maybe I'll learn something from both of them that they both never thought of.
Oh, that's. I mean, it makes sense, but it's impressive. Do you reckon? Because you have an engineering background, correct? Is that something you studied alongside your developmental cycling years, or did I misread that?
Yeah, it was actually computer science, but everyone brings it back to engineering. Yeah.
Okay, well, so computer science, and then you said some non-specific bike training. Do you mean further strength and conditioning, Adam, or do you mean non-road related cycling?
A bit of both, but yeah, more strength and conditioning. So just like, a lot of free body weights, for example.
Yep. And with the core stuff, is there one exercise that Adam Hansen would rate king or queen over all others?
Just doing it every day.
There's a theme emerging here, Adam. This consistency, right? And then you did say that consistency in training. What's been your approach over the years? Clearly, you've figured out, you've been dialed in, you've been receptive enough to your body's cues to know when to push and when not to push, which is an art and a science, isn't it? But what advice would you give to athletes out there that are looking to improve their consistency of training?
Well, definitely with the consistency of training, you definitely need a well-structured training plan. So that's definitely number one. And two is definitely train at 100%. And what I mean by 100% is if you do a long ride, pure long ride, that's it. Don't put intervals in there. Don't put strength training in there. Just do a long ride. If you do an interval day, it doesn't have to be 5 hours. It can be even 2 hours if you want, as long as the interval section is, at 100%. And also, if you do like a strength block, do the strength block. Don't mix it up and try and do more by including, let's say, sprints in a long ride, because you're not going to get the benefits of a long ride, and you're also not going to get the benefits of the sprint training because you're going to be a little bit fatigued from the long ride.
So don't cross-pollinate the session's purposes. Keep them intentional. And that's powerful. I mean, I think particularly recreationally in cycling, it's easy, isn't it? You go out for a group ride and it turns into, bunch sprints for the primes or whatever it may be. And as you say you're not training at 100%, as you put it. If you're planning like you are for Adam just an extension of that thought about organising your training. If you're planning for, a next Ironman event, obviously this is your new chapter, exploring Ironman Triathlon, do you just reverse engineer to organise your training calendar? Like, look at, you got 6 months to prepare. How do you go about that?
Yeah, exactly like that. So let's say I have an Ironman that finishes on is on a Saturday. Then that week I'll be like, okay, that's my taper period. The week before that, and I'll structure the taper period for that. And then the week before that, I'd be like, okay, how long do I want long rides to be, or how hard do I want my constant rides to be? And then I'll put that training session there. And then from that point to where I am, the current time, then I'll do a pathway to get to A to B. And all it has to be is smaller increments to get there. And I'll have my rest phase and everything like that. But yeah, the idea is where I want to be 1 week before, I go from there and I go back to the start and I go, okay, how do I get there?
And just factor in the key components of the training program that you need. What would those components be, Adam? Obviously, there's high intensity interval work, there's long, easy rides. What are some of the other key sessions you like to, on the bike, hit?
For me is I really like the constant training. So let's say if I do it can be between, I like more than 4 hours, but like 5, sometimes just 7 hours, but like full constant. So for me, I do like 300 watts. So it's not super hard for me. There's also a little bit, not so easy. And this is really good to maximize your fat metabolism. So this is a very important key factor. And when you do some of these type of training efforts, if you go to a hill, you actually slow down because you're trying to keep the power constant. And when you get over the hill, you got to sort of keep the power over. So you actually speed up. And when you go downhill, you're actually going a lot faster because you got to have the same watts as before and after. So if you do this for someone else, it's very annoying because it seems like you're racing. If you get to the hill, you go so slow, like, hey, come on. It's like, yeah, but once you go a bit over the limit, then you're sort of changing your energy structure of your training. And that's something you don't want to do, because I'm a huge believer in training your fat metabolism, because, as you know, we only have a limited amount of how many calories we can consume. And your fat metabolism is a bit, yes, in a sense, it's a fuel system that not many people train. And the better this is trained, then the more we can save our glycogen stores. So for me, a lot of my training is based on fat metabolism. Now, I'm not a keto person at all. It's more about just training a fat metabolism and going full carbs in the race. So you get the benefit of two fuel systems. So that's definitely one of the main things I do. But always my training structure, and like I said, to have a consistent training plan and to be consistent in training and also do everything 100%. I always have a 3-day structure. So the first day I'll do like speed work or very explosive work or very hard intervals. And then day 2, it'll be more strength work, where you can do, low cadence strength work on a climb the day after the speed work. And then day 3 would be a long endurance ride or a constant ride. And because that's not a high intensity, you can do that after the 2 days training, where if you did that in reverse, you can do your long ride at the start, but then you'd be a bit tired for your strength training, so that wouldn't be at 100%. And then on day 3, if you did your speed work last, then you wouldn't be at 100% either to do that effort because you'd be so fatigued from the 2 sessions. So this is what I mean by a real structured training plan, because then you can do all 3 sessions at 100%, have a rest day, and then start again. So to me, this is the well structured plan is definitely a key.
Wow, this is it's fantastic. And when you say rest day, is that a complete rest day or cross-training day that's not on the bike, or you're still on the bike?
For me, I think I have a complete rest day. And I say this because a lot of riders, what they do is, and even athletes, they might do a coffee shop ride. It's going to be 45 minutes. So they'll just ride to a coffee shop, have a coffee, come back. But then for me, mentally, it's like, okay, then you got to get dressed. It's half an hour, prepare your bike and everything after. And it can be like, okay, some riders push to the extreme. It can be half a day. And for me, I think you should have a really mental rest day. So when the day after, you really want to get on the bike. It's not like you're on the bike every single day, training every day. And just I think the mental side is really important in that aspect.
Wow. And we've featured Adam, former Australian Institute of Sport Recovery Centre Director, Shona Hansen, on the show as an expert edition. And she had this brilliant adage: the only training we're benefiting from is the training we're recovering from. And so that discipline, as you say, is something that's really jumping out to me. Very intentional about what you do and disciplined. Is that something, that 3-day cycle plus a recovery day, you've been doing for the last 10 years or 15 years or 5 years? What's that look like for Adam Hansen?
Yeah, I think when you say it like that, definitely more than 15 years. Definitely more than 15 years. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I do extend to 4 days. So I might have another strength block or 2 long rides in it. But it's definitely in that phase, always that phase.
Yeah, wow. And that's, as some former sports scientists have shared on the show, there's how long is a training cycle? Well, as long as it needs to be to get the key components delivered and then recover and go again. So it's really quite interesting that you figured out that could be 3 days or 4 days and then you go again. Adam, the fat metabolism, as you say, when it's high intensity efforts, race, it's going to be glycogen stores predominantly. But any advice to the recreational competitive athlete, Adam, around how they can determine how to best monitor their via heart rate or their zone so that they can determine the difference between fat metabolism and carbohydrate metabolism?
Well, yeah, like you said, I don't like to give training advice in specific and zones and that because everyone's different.
Yes.
But if someone wants to train their the fat metabolism, the first thing I would recommend is, because a lot of athletes don't actually train in a fasted state. And when you're doing a long ride, or even if they want to do it on the recovery day, you're training at such a low intensity where you can get enough energy from your fat stores. So when you're doing something like this, and just this type of training, then don't have breakfast that morning. Go out and do your training. And if it's a long ride, then do 1 hour without eating. Or if you want, you can start directly when you start to have some food directly on the bike. So you've even skipped a pretty large meal before the training. And then you can do 1 hour of that. Let's say it's a 3-hour ride or 2-hour ride on the weekend. You can do the first hour in a faster state, and then you have half a bar, a quarter of a bar, and then every 20 minutes have a quarter of a bar. Or then, the next week when you do it, then do like an hour and a half, and just extend it, half an hour every time. But try and when you're on the bike or when you're training, don't have large amounts of food at once. Just try and stick to a quarter bar and just prolong it as much as possible.
Just titrate that ingestion out over time.
Yeah.
Adam, with regards to your carbohydrate consumption, I heard you recently on the MX Endurance podcast with some friends and colleagues of mine, and James Bale in particular, and you were sharing that you've been in the Giro, your final Grand Tour, you were trying to increase your carbohydrate intake per hour, and then you quipped that you had put on weight through the tour. And it just struck me that you're very scientific about that as well and intentional. I think you were looking at 120 grams of carbohydrate per hour. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there was a lot of science that it could be 90 grams and that the human can consume per hour. And this was only, I think, 1 year ago or 2 years ago, our team was pushing for the 90. And back then it was thought to be 60. And then there's some more research saying that it's possible to take 120 grams. But something like this you really do have to train it. So, I do a lot of training based on fat metabolism, but when I do my interval days or some specific days like this, then it's really, you got to train absorbing the carbohydrate. So it's a bit of flip side. You got to train both. It's not always, train a faster state. So when you do these days where you're trying to really maximize your carbohydrate intake, you really got to do 90 to 120 grams per hour for 1 or 2 hours at least. At least if you're an amateur cyclist, and if you really want to get into the sport and professional level, then you got to do 5, 6, 7 hours of it, because you've got to get the body used to it. That's for sure. So you have to train it.
Yeah. And in preparing that, I've seen you put your gels into your squeeze bottle. It looks like an old bag of urine that's been left in the corner. There's nothing attractive about it. That's a bit of is that an Adam Hansen special, or is that quite a common way of getting the fuels carried for the peloton?
Now it's a lot of guys are actually copying it, because if we have, let's say you have 12 gels in a race, it's a lot of wrappers that riders have. And traditionally, people used to just throw it on the side of the road. So this way was, I put it on there, it's properly in the trash, and then I can just sip it whenever I want. And so it's no waste in that sense. And it was just easier because you just have one sachet full of all your food. And for me, it was like my little savior in the race. I keep close.
And where would you carry it? Would you carry that in the bid and holder or just in your back pocket?
Well, I used to use a skin suit where I had no pockets, so I just keep it just tucked underneath the top there. And everyone thought I wouldn't eat. They're like, wow, you don't eat this stage? I'm like, yep. Just to play with their mind.
Playing with people's mind, I think it's something that you continue to do with some of your innovations, which we'll touch on. But Adam, there's some great learnings there. One thing we shouldn't gloss over is that you're an intentional fueler. You're a vegan athlete. That's something Adam Vegan Hansen, I think, that's intertwined with your reputation. I saw one of your YouTube videos. I think you'd just finished the stage. You were back at the hotel and you had the magic bullet going with banana and protein. So obviously you've figured out a way to fuel a huge energy expenditure with seemingly no deficits to have had such an outstanding, relatively injury-free career. There's a line of thought, particularly in my line of work as sports physiotherapist, that if an athlete isn't ingesting meat, an endurance athlete, there's potentially a greater prevalence of injuries. But look at someone like yourself, and that doesn't necessarily hold up.
Yeah, well, yeah. The reason why I put, the vegan in my name is just for the athletes out there that want to try it, that want to do it. I just want to show that you can do it. It is possible, and you can break the myths. So I'm not the Bible bash of vegan. It's more like, it's not how people say that, you must have meat.
Yeah, okay. So it's to challenge people's conceptions. You've certainly challenged what I thought was possible. I really wouldn't know where to start in building a bicycle. But lo and behold, Adam Hansen's building his next time trial machine. I mean, we will link up the ride interview that you did with the team there, and it was fantastic where you really went deep on some of the components. But what inspires you to even want to try and build your own bike? Is it just the academic challenge to the satisfaction you're looking for? Because you could go and ride any bike and post a darn fast split on the bike leg. What like, this is a heck of a lot of work.
Yeah, it's exactly how you say it. It is a challenge for me. I also made my carbon fiber shoes in the past. Well, I still do. And at the start, I really wanted to do it. I want to make it as light as possible and stiff as possible. And I failed at the start. I really did. And for me, it was just a challenge. And this comes back to, I come from a programming background where you try and develop some type of software, and programmers can develop software in any way they want. And there's so many different methods of doing it. And with the shoes, and it's going to be like the bike also, I have the end target, and how I'm going to do it is, it's more the methods of how I'm going to produce is going to be the difficult task, and which way I'll go about it. So yeah, it is a challenge in that sense. It's not, I'm going to fail a lot of times when I do it, but I do. Yeah, it's going to definitely work. That's for sure. I'll never give up.
And I mean, some of the features, minimizing the frontal area, you consider the bike won't be light, a greater, longer wheelbase, a straight chain line with what you're going to do with the derailleurs. There's nothing that you haven't really thought of that I can see.
Well, yeah, being in the industry for so long, I saw, because when you look at TT riders, especially in World Tour, they'll pick. Because a lot of guys, if you look at guys like Tony Martin, who was a really good time trialist 5 or 6 years ago, he would have a 58 or 59 front chainring, which is huge. And everyone was thinking, yeah, but 58 on the front, 11 on the back, it's impossible to ride. But he never rode the 11. He always rode a 14 or a 15 because he wanted that straight chain line. So for me, it was all these little things that I saw in the peloton. I was like, okay, let's put it all into one bike, And even like you said with the wheelbase, what we found is, when I did some testing on weight distribution, is that when you're on your bike, you've actually got 40 to 60% on each wheel, and it should be 50-50 with tire pressure. And your tires, the rolling resistance is such a huge thing. So for me, if I can get 50% and then I can have really good weight distribution, then I have less rolling wheel resistance. And how I worked this out is I was driving a car, it was a rent-a-car, the fuel gauge wasn't working, I ran out of petrol in the middle of nowhere, I had a bike in the back, I had to build my bike, I rode to a petrol station, I got 1 or 2 litres of petrol, and it was getting heavy. And when I put on my handlebars, I noticed it was so much harder to ride the bike. Just by moving that 2 kilos from the center of the bike to the on top of the front wheel really slowed the bike down. I had to pedal so much more. And since then, I was like, every time you're on the bike, you put so much extra weight on the front wheel, then it's really there's so much more rolling. You don't feel it on the bike until you do it like a little test like that. And for me, it was like every time I spoke to bike manufacturers, like, how do we make the bike faster? You know, what do you want? It's like, just extend the wheelbase, make it better weight distribution between the wheels, because no manufacturer thinks of this. So all these little things, I thought, okay, chain line, okay, I'm going to do this, have a straight chain line everywhere and have the front chain ring follow the back rear derailleur, but always straight chain line, have better weight distribution for the front and rear wheels, try and make it as narrow as possible. So all these little things I wanted to just, you know, if you're going to do, let's say, a bike like this, you want to include everything. I don't want to do something that's already out there, because, you know, I can ride just something that's already out there. So I'm just putting all the good ideas into one project, do it once and do it right.
Wow. So the old Graham O'Brien time trial position way out in front didn't, from memory, I'm trying to think, I don't think it looked like he was that weighted on the front wheel. He was more sitting, like, I'm trying to remember it, but we might see some sort of version of that, hey, with no restrictions from UCI and your triathlon efforts.
Well, that's the other thing, because, like, you know, we're always bound by rules and restriction in World Tour. And when we watch the triathletes, we're like, why don't they go past it? Because the UCI has them for a very good reason. And it's like in triathlons, yeah, there's no rules in position. Well, there's some, but, you know, not to the extent in under World Tour racing. So, yeah, I will have a different position, that's for sure. Which
I think is just interesting. There's such an assumption that, you know, there's no more innovations to be had. I was doing some training on the Gold Coast here with ex-motorcyclist, former guest on the show, Troy Bayliss, and we were out preparing for the Road Masters and on a course, and Troy pulled me over and he showed me what he'd done with his front wheel. He just put a little weight. This is something they do on the motorbikes. He'd put a little weight on either side just to, I'm not sure the technical terms, balance it out. And he spun my front wheel and said, have a feel of what that does to your bike, and now have a feel of mine. And I just thought, if that makes such a difference, which you can immediately sense, why is that not featured on every commercial bike that's outputted? I mean, excluding, I guess, UCI regulations. Yeah, it's a super good point. I remember years ago, guys were complaining about that also. And there were some wheel manufacturers when they, with the 3 spokes, when they did put a magnet on one side for the speed, they'd actually put a weight on the other side also. But yeah, you definitely feel little things like this. So I just applaud your efforts and your constant innovation. Before we move off the innovation side of things, Adam, where is this endless pool up to that you're building? I rarely am sort of lost for words, but I saw you building an endless pool and I was like, that is next level. So for those that don't know, an endless pool is an indoor pool of which you swim in a stationary position. How's that coming along, or has that been put to the side while you focus on the bike?
No, it's coming along pretty good. I'm just finished. I made the plug. That's probably what you saw on Instagram. So that's the piece I'm going to take a mold of. So that's finished. I made the mold of that. And about 4 days ago, I just pulled that plug from the mold, and the mold is super good. So it's going to be modular pool also. So each section is 1 meter long. And so I'll do 3 or 4 pieces of that and then put it together. So the molds are all done. I have the pump for the water jets and everything. And what I hope to do, and I can't guarantee this part, is have like 2 sensors on the front and the back of the pool. So when you swim past the sensor, the speed of the water will come out faster. And then when you go too slow and you pass the sensor at the back, then it will actually slow the pump down. So then you always stay in the middle position. Because what I read a lot about the problems with the endless pools is it's fixed to one speed and you're really stuck to that. And then you've got to stop and then push a button. With this, you can control the speed based on how fast you want to swim in it. But it's coming along pretty good. So this is another Adam Hansen innovation. And I guess you'll want to make sure that the jets are fast enough, yeah? Because you're not a bad swimmer, so it'll need to, and the sensors work. Otherwise, you'll be crashing into the end. They'll definitely be good enough. They'll be, yeah. Brilliant. Adam, you mentioned sensors, the word sensors. You're heavily involved, a team member with LEMO, Motion Sensing Technology. What would you share to the recreational athlete out there, be it a triathlete or cyclist, around
the considerations of why they might look at this technology? As a physiotherapist, it strikes me as fascinating tech.
Yeah, the number one thing, or the easiest thing to learn, to, let's say, use it, is to see how symmetrical you are on the bike or when you're running. So it measures the angle range movement of your legs for left and right side. And you can see directly if one, let's say LAR, which is your leg angle range, if one is moving a lot higher, bigger range than the other, then there's some type of imbalance. And that imbalance will catch up to you one day or one period in time where you've always been working one side more than the other. So just from, keeping in good check and trying to be as symmetrical as possible, this system shows this directly at the start without knowing anything about the metrics or anything. So just in that sense, it's really good. Like I had a crash once in a Spanish race. I leaned all on one side. I had skin off everywhere. And then from a training ride before that race and after that race, I saw all the metrics on my right side. You could see that I crashed on that side. And for me, it was like, okay, I train easy until the graphs of my left side and right side came together. And then when I knew I was symmetrical, then I could get back to training in a good way. So that's probably, I think, for the amateur athlete is probably the best thing about it.
And then obviously it's got applicability to practitioners working in the field as well with bike setup, injury, treatment, prevention as well.
Yeah, well, I did one test where I put the sensors on. I was just doing squats over and over and over. And you can see that the quality of the squat, so the actual motion from the first one to the last one is dramatically different. And my boss is really big into weightlifting. And he thinks that every squat should be in an optimal position. And that's one of the things. So we do cycling, running, and the third one is functional training. And it's more about just trying to have always a good form in every exercise you do. And that's one of the things, that's we'll be getting more into. Well, it's actually, we haven't released that part of the software yet.
Oh, so that's coming, that you can use it for strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
Ah, brilliant. And so you do spend some time in a gym setting. Obviously, you mentioned the core work, Adam, but you also spend, 1 or 2 sessions in the gym or more?
Oh, when I can, I do. It's a bit hard now because everything's closed in Europe. But I have a mini gym at home where, I do spend a lot of time there for sure.
Great. And some of that, is that quite heavy or more high rep work?
Yeah, more high rep work and more regular high rep work. And it does change quite a bit. I do some heavy stuff, on the legs, obviously. But it's more, body free movement. And more regularly. So I'd much prefer to do, 2 sessions a day or 15 minutes instead of 1 session of 30 minutes and do pretty much the same exercises morning and night, just spread it out more.
And the benefit of that is to be fresher or to psychologically or breaking into those training blocks?
Yeah, to be fresher, but always, just keep the body moving. I feel if you do, let's say if you do 1 session Monday morning and your next session is Tuesday morning, you can be a bit stiff, where if you're always moving, I just feel it's a bit better. So if you just split that session in half and do, Monday morning and Monday afternoon or Monday evening, then the next day, it's not such a huge toll at one period of time, and it's a bit spread out, and you just feel more free on that. That's just something that I found with doing Grand Tours is, if you have a complete rest day on a rest day in the Giro or the Tour de France or something like this, then you are more stiff the day after, and it's more that active recovery. So it's more that feeling the day after. I think it's just, for me, I find it good.
You're listening to professional cyclist turned professional Ironman triathlete Adam Hansen on this Featured Performer episode. Support for today's show comes from the great team at Precision Hydration. We recently featured Precision Hydration co-founder Andy Blow on episode 234 for an expert edition around all things hydration science. And it was one of 2020's most popular expert editions. It's an expert edition that if you missed it, you must go back with a pen and paper and enjoy the learnings shared by Andy. One of the big takeaways that so many listeners had from Andy's share-ins were that there is not a one-size-fits-all approach to hydration for endurance athletes. Quite simply because everyone loses a different amount of salt in their sweat. I was fortunate to get a sweat test done in 2020, and it turns out, despite a high sweat volume, that my sweat concentration is actually quite low, and I lose about half the amount that the average athlete loses in sweat. So if you've ever struggled with hydration issues like cramp during long, hot sessions, then it's worth checking out precisionhydration.com. If you can't get to a sweat testing center like I was able to, then you can jump online and take their free sweat test to get a personalized hydration strategy to test in training. Off the back of that, you'll come out with a hydration plan, and you can connect with the Precision Hydration team on a free 20-minute video call where you can ask questions about how to implement your hydration strategy for your next upcoming race. And off the back of a free online sweat test and online hydration strategy consultation, the team have very generously offered listeners of the Physical Performance Show 15% off their first order of electrolytes. Simply jump over and use the coupon code PERFORMANCE, all one word, capitals, 15 when checking out at precisionhydration.com. Support for today's show also comes from Pogo Physio's online telehealth consultations. If you are an endurance athlete struggling with bone, tendon, or joint-related concerns, then rest assured, online telehealth consultations can be remarkably effective in getting you back to your physical best. You can schedule online for your 45-minute telehealth consultation with myself or any of the Pogo Physio team by jumping over to pogophysio.com.au. And finally, you can now support the production of the Physical Performance Show via our Patreon learnings-based membership, where from just $5 per month, you can support the show's production, and in return, we'll grant you access to all upcoming live stream events for 2021 and also our back catalogue of live stream events. It's simple. Jump over to Patreon, Patreon, search for the Physical Performance Show, and there you can pledge your support from just $5 per month. For now, let's jump back with more of this week's featured performers sharings. Adam Hansen, professional cyclist turned professional Ironman triathlete, on this featured performer episode. There's no one on the planet more qualified to answer this question, Adam. We featured recently Inigo Mujica, Spanish applied exercise scientist around tapering for endurance sports, and he shared that, there's the different types of taper. What have you found over your career worked well for you leading into a Grand Tour? He spoke about, the step tapers or the linear or progressive decay tapers. Was there any? You must have had that dialed in after 29 of them.
Yeah. For me, it's going to be different almost every time. And the number one thing is to be as fresh as possible going in. And if you have doubts on your form and how hard the session will be, just go fresh as possible. And with the Grand Tour, it's a bit easier in a sense where you can go so fresh under that, the first, you can say goodbye to the first 2 or 3 stages, and that will get you better for the rest of the race. But if you go on a little bit cooked or a little bit hot, you'll pay for it. So, yeah, definitely with your taper, if you're in doubt, just skip a session, make it easier. And I usually go day by day with feeling. What I don't like is when you have such a structured plan and you stick to it so much, when you have 1 or 2 days where you're not feeling so good, or the session before was a bit too taxing on your body, that you stick to it and you sort of create a hole for you. So I have a structured plan on tapering and also training where it's more like a guide, and you do alter it a little based on the day before. Or because I'm not a very good sleeper, if I don't have a good night's sleep, I will change a training session because of that. So I'm not so religious. I have the plan and everything, but I'm not so religious. I must do it because it was on my plan. I do, okay. I wake up in the morning, my plan is to do strength work. What is the best thing I can do today? I had not good sleep. Should I have like a more recovery day or extend it or do it tomorrow? Or will doing the session today compromise the rest of the week? And I do alter it. And with tapering, you have to do this also. If you don't have a good night's sleep, or you had too much stress from work, or you had some other factors that come into it, you want to be optimal then at the race day, and you don't want to do anything too much. And don't ever think that if you do too less, it's going to be worse. That's definitely, it's always best to be fresh, less fit, than super fit and cooked into a race.
Or even injured.
Exactly, yes.
And not on the start line. And just thinking through the science, that has been shared on expert editions around recovery and optimal performance, the experts talk regularly about that approach that you've just embodied there, Adam, and that is that willingness to be flexible versus rigid and make day-to-day changes to what's planned.
Exactly. Yeah.
And hence the longevity. Adam Hansen, are you ready for a rapid-fire series of questions, the performance round?
Okay.
This is your first session for the day.
Very good.
Training session most disliked?
Most disliked? In a terrible weather day. So it can be anything. I actually like all my trainings.
I get that sense. Terrible weather. Training session most loved?
I love the super short, super hard interval trainings where you come home and you're like, yeah, today I did good.
And what sort of ratios might we be talking about, work to rest?
I do a lot of 30-30s. So, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. These are very good to see your heart rate reactions if it's too hard or too easy. And hill repeats. I love my hill repeats. So I'll do a lot of fart legs. So I might go to a climb that's 6 minutes long. I'll do the first one, 30-30s, come back. I'll do like FTP one. I'll come back and I'll just do like maybe 10 of them and I'll just mix it up. Something like this. Because, it's good. I just like it.
Well, and there's a rationale for that. Favorite pre-race meal? Geez, I'd hate to add up. I know on your YouTube header there you say maybe you've ridden a billion miles or billion kilometres, but how many pre-race meals has Adam Hansen ingested over his career? That would be an interesting number. What's your favourite source of fuel before your race?
I would go with porridge or some type of oats.
Yep, quite a few bowls of those I've seen on your YouTube channel.
Many.
You said something interesting, and we always ask feature performers their bedtime and morning time, and obviously it varies, but you said that you're not a good sleeper, as in you have trouble getting to sleep or wake up or through the night?
Yeah, well, not waking up. Getting to sleep. I just think too much. So, yeah.
That's that active mind, that active mind of yours, Adam. Question we always ask the feature performer: who's the athlete Adam Hansen most admires and why? Tricky one, because there can obviously be many.
Well, I'm going to say Victor Campenaerts, which is a former teammate, current world hour record. He shouldn't say this. He's not the best athlete in the world, but the dedication he puts and all the fine little details that he puts into it, that he really ticks every box, makes him the fastest 1 hour rider. And you can really see he does everything. If I put the sachet of my food in the back, he puts it in the front. Super annoying and uncomfortable, but it's more aerodynamic and I'll save just a little bit and he'll do it. Also, radio won't be in the back. Put it also in the front because it's more aerodynamic. Super uncomfortable, but he'll do all these little things to tick the boxes. When you just break the 1 hour record, so the track on the velodrome, you go clockwise, right? So anything on the outside of the bike will hit more wind than something on the inside of the bike. And now chainring's on the right-hand side of the bike, the drive side. So he was asking me, how do I put that on the inside of the bike? So it just does, I think it was like 45 centimetres less around, just for the aerodynamics. And I was like, okay, it's, you can flip the chainring. That's no problem. The cranks and everything. And okay, because it's on the track, it's a fixed disc, so there's no free hub body. You can just rotate it. Yeah, that'll work. But I'll probably drill the sprocket on because the thread is based on when you pedal, it tightens. But when it's flipped the other way, it actually unloosens. So make sure that's drilled through. I'm like, and he was pushing it, like all these small little details. He will do everything for his performance, and just the dedication in that. I think I'd really admire in that sense. He didn't do the moving the drive side because the sponsor said no. We don't sell bikes like that, so we don't do it. But yeah, the way his dedication is really impressive.
Wow, and hence why you guys are great roommates. Two fascinating minds together, and I think you may have mentioned in some media I saw of you speaking, Adam, that Victor's output in terms of watts was less than Bradley Wiggins, but he's still got the record based on a lot of these other factors, right? The 1 hour.
Yeah, record. Victor tells me everything, but he will never tell anyone what he did in a 1 hour record. And I was like, why? He goes, if I told you how easy it was, you would go for it. Because every single box, aerodynamics, skin suit, like everything. And in the end, like altitude training to the max. And yeah, he just he thinks he can go so much faster.
Wow. Yeah, fascinating. Watch this space. Toughest competitor Adam Hansen's ever raced against. Who was that, Adam?
Toughest competitor, probably Jens Voigt.
Yeah, Jens Voigt. Shut up legs, eh? Adam, is there a mantra that you've used over your career? Some regular self-talk. Start of a grand tour, you had 29 of them.
Well, I have two, actually. So do it once, do it right. And with the grand tours, no matter what happens, you'll be in your bed tonight. So as difficult things will be, it's always going to finish and the pain will stop and it's going to be a good night for sure.
Wow. No matter what happens, you will be in your bed tonight, and do it once and do it right. Adam Hansenisms. Adam, best recovery tip. You've spoken there about the importance of recovery. How does Adam Hansen optimize his recovery?
With nutrition. So, yeah, definitely. So just to go really quick into it, your insulin's super important with your nutrition. So, if you have a carbohydrate or some sugar spike, you'll have an insulin spike. And when you have an insulin spike, that's when you're most anabolic. So this is why you should have carbohydrate before your protein. And you have the high insulin spike when you're more anabolic and you have the protein there to be absorbed better. So definitely with the nutrition, get that down pat. Yeah, if you have a well-structured program, like how I was saying what works for me with a 3-day program, that style of training helps the next day and it flows better. So it's more, if you're smashing out every day, it's going to be difficult to recover that and do the next session. Where if you have a better structured program, then you're going to recover better from those sessions and the next sessions will dial in nicely. So with the nutrition and that, I think that really helps.
That's powerful and brilliant. Adam, one word to describe your racing style, nearly out of this performance round.
Never give up.
That was 3, but we'll go with it. I like it. Adam, how would Adam Hansen describe being in the zone?
I'm always calculating.
I'm always calculating.
For me, it's like if I'm doing time trial or a long race, it's like, okay, I'm doing this watts, I'm doing the finish is X hours away, and I'm just go through the couple, and then when I'm finished that calculation, I'll do it again and again and again, and I'm not looking at outside factors. I'm fully focused, and I just keep it at that.
Wow, and I mean that's quite different to other responses we've had over the years, Adam, where people will describe the zone in many other ways, but that's it. Kind of doesn't surprise me getting a little sense for your how your mind works. So always calculating. Final question in the performance round, Adam. We note that epic training sessions don't make champions, but consistent effort over time obviously does. But what's the hardest session you can ever recall doing across your incredible career to date?
Hardest session? If you do some type of interval work, that can be really hard. But probably what I really like is if I do these constant rides where I might aim for like 300 watts and I'll do it over, I think I did it like 9 or 11 hours, and just the amount of calories you can burn. Because that's when you do 272 watts, it's 1,000 calories an hour. So you're looking at, I think it's like 1,100 calories an hour, and you're looking over 10,000 calorie day. So it's a big day. And something like this is you strip fat super well. But yeah, it's super hard, right?
300 watts for 9 or 11 hours. That's eye-watering. And you must have had a few of your sachets in your back, in your skin suit that day. That's epic. Sure. Adam Hansen, you're out of the performance round. Well done. You're listening to Adam Hansen, professional cyclist with the most amount of Grand Tours completed, 26 across a 2-decade career, on this Featured Performer episode, sharing on his highs, lows, and many learn-ins. If you missed last week's episode, it was an expert edition featuring UK-based leading sports dietitian and author Rinny McGregor. We titled the episode Fueling for Health and Performance, and the recurring theme around energy deficits for athletes was at the top of the conversation. Here's a snippet from Rinny McGregor's sharings on episode 258.
for an athlete to be physically really well, as in they have enough energy to perform and adapt from their training. So that's something I would say is always worth having a conversation is they might be the right weight, but are you adapting? Are you noticing changes to your muscle mass? Are you getting leaner? Are you finding you're getting stronger? Are you getting faster? How is your performance? Because this is a real telltale area. And for an athlete to work optimally, what we found is that you need to have a very high energy intake alongside a moderately high training output. And that's how you maintain really good health and performance.
To enjoy the full episode 258, featuring Rinny McGregor, be sure to jump over to wherever it is that you enjoy your podcast from. And don't forget, we're now available over on YouTube as well. For now, let's jump back with this week's featured guest, Adam Hansen, professional cyclist turned professional Ironman triathlete, on this Featured Performer episode. Every guest of the show issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. So what is Adam Hansen's physical challenge going to be?
Fast for a day.
Fast for one day. Please explore, unpack.
So, yeah, just don't eat anything. You'll save a lot of time. You'll save some money. And, yeah, I think it's good for the body to have a rest also in the stomach and digestion, everything like that. So, and also it's good for your fat metabolism. It can help quite a bit also. So it's good for training, good to give your body a rest. The thing with athletes is we pump so much food into our bodies, the digestive system does need a rest. So I think it's good on all levels.
Adam, how often might you do that? Obviously you're in your Ironman training phase now, but is that something you've done for years, or what's, just when you feel like it, or are you quite strategic about that as well?
I do a lot of it when I'm traveling, just so you're not eating, junk food at the airports and things like that, or if I can't get the nutritional plan I want. I always do it on rest days. I might do half a fast or half a day, or I might do the night before I eat, and I won't eat for the next night. So you're still eating that day, but it's still a 24-hour period. So, yeah, I do it generally around my training. A lot of times I do it on, if I have an easier long ride, I won't eat the whole long ride, but I'll eat the night before, and then after the long ride I will. So it's still a 24-hour period. And if you want to do like a day and a half, that's how you can sort of like cheat. You eat the night before, and then you do 24 hours, and then you eat the morning. So you actually get an extra 12 hours to make it a 36-hour fast, where it's only really when you think about one day without eating, because you have the 2 sleeps that are added into it. So, yeah, I do it quite a lot. Sometimes I do a 3 or 4 day fast. I think it's very healthy. Then you get into autophagy and cell replacement, and I think this is kind of good for longevity also.
Yeah, well, it hasn't hurt you to date, and obviously it's a whole other topic in terms of the science behind that. But that's a unique challenge. First time in 5 years that someone's issued a fasting challenge. So if we take this on, we must let you know. And we can find you easily over on social at Adam Hansino on Instagram and Hansen Adam on Twitter. Also, just quickly throw out there your YouTube channel, which is a fantastic Friday evening bit of entertainment, I find. Adam, every guest of the show also answers this question, and that is, if you had to boil everything you've learned through your incredible career so far into one piece of advice to help listeners of this show perform at their physical best, what would that single piece of advice be?
Like I said, 2 things. Never experience something new in a race. My old running coach, Nev Appleby, used to say that. And this is with nutrition, race pace. Don't think you're going to do something magical on race day. If you've never done a training, don't aim for it unless the last part of your race you can, but at the beginning, definitely never experience something new. And be mentally prepared that it's going to be hard. So when it does come to that period in the race when it is hard, you're not shocked. And you're like, yes, I knew it's going to be hard. I'm doing it now, and at the end, it's going to ease off. And when you have this mental state that you know it's going to be hard, and that time where your legs are hurting and everything, and it comes to you, it's like it's okay because you expected it. If you think it's going to be easy, it's not. Nothing's going to be easy when you're performing at your best. And if you just mentally prepared that you're self-aware of this, and that when it comes, you're prepared. You thought about it before, and you're experiencing it, and you just get through it.
Yeah, they're powerful. Never experience something new in a race, and be mentally prepared that it's going to be hard. Adam Hansen, thank you for your contribution to the Physical Performance Show. 2021, obviously the world's still navigating challenging times, but where might we see you, hopefully, next on a start line?
My next 3 races are all postponed, so I don't know actually. But the next Ironman that starts in Europe, I'll be there.
So the next Ironman that does get a kickoff in Europe, Adam Hansen will be on the start line. Your Ironman debut, which I had to chuckle to myself in Ironman Florida there in 2019. You mentioned that your team bosses, you had to sort of sneak under the radar there to say, I'm doing a triathlon, but you just didn't say it was an Ironman. But I was looking at you, and I know you said, you took it for fun, you went about it quite casually, but with a 58-minute swim, 4:15 bike, 3:37 off the bike for the marathon, it was still a pretty impressive, casual, fun day out for any athlete.
It was a fun day, though. I really enjoyed it.
So I think the world of triathlon and endurance sports absolutely intrigued, and we're going to be following your journey very closely. So we certainly wish you all the best for the journey ahead, Adam.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physical Performance Show, and I trust and I know you enjoyed Adam Hansen's sharings. What a remarkable athlete and a remarkable mind to go with it. As I mentioned, Adam has a terrific YouTube channel. Jump over to YouTube, search for Adam Hansen and hit subscribe and enjoy and also be educated from Adam's outputs. You'll find Adam over on social media at Adam Hanseno. That's Adam, Hanseno, Hanseno on Instagram, and also over on Twitter at Adam #Vegan Hansen. And do reach out and let Adam know what it was that you enjoyed from his sharings today. Keep the podsies coming. They are screenshots of the episode that you're enjoying at any given time and tagging in the Physical Performance Show over on social at Physical Performance Show. If you have any feedback for the show, you'll find me on social at Brad_Beer. And if you want to follow my attempts at putting the learnings into practice from this show and the generous guest sharings, you'll find me over on Strava, Brad Beer, as I prepare for my first Ironman Triathlon Cairns 2021. Massive thanks to those leaving ratings and reviews for the show over on iTunes and for those hitting subscribe. They always mean so much to read. A massive thanks once again to this week's show sponsor, Precision Hydration. The team are there to help, and do yourself a favor. If you are not sure what your sweat concentration is, then it is a must know in terms of informing your best hydration strategy for your training and your next upcoming events. Jump over to precisionhydration.com and take the free online sweat test. Whilst there, you can book a 20-minute video call to discuss your hydration strategy. And of course, off the back of that, use a coupon code PERFORMANCE15 to get 15% off your first order of electrolytes. If you are not using science with your hydration, then there's a possibility and a likelihood that you're leaving some performance on the table. So once again, massive thanks to Precision Hydration. As earlier mentioned, you can now support the production of the show. We often say podcasts are free to download, however, they are not free to produce. So if you would like to support the show, you can do so over at Patreon. Just search the Physical Performance Show, and there you can pledge your support for just $5 per month. And in return, we'll grant you access to all upcoming live stream events complimentary, and also free access to our back catalogue of very popular live stream events in 2020, featuring Dr. Shona Halson on all things recovery and Dr. Stephen Seiler on all things polarized training. And a big thank you to our new patron for the week, Haytham L. Ansari. Thank you for your support. It means a lot. And don't forget, if you are struggling with a bone, tendon, or joint-related concern, then feel free to reach out, email me with any questions, b.beer@pogophysio.com.au, or if you know you want online support, you can schedule that over at pogophysio.com.au/telehealth. Of course, our clinic's available for services also on the Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia, in person. Now, massive thanks, as always, to the great folk who make this show possible each and every week. Daryl Misson, our audio engineer, Susan Wilkin on all things show administration, and Matthew Walding on all things show graphic design. Now, coming up on next week's episode of the Physical Performance Show, you are in for a treat as we jump gears and we jump over to an expert edition featuring PhD Dr. Will O'Connor on a discussion around all things how to use power in running. This is certainly one of the great data breakthroughs in current endurance sports times. And if you're anything like me, running with power is not something that we're naturally familiar with. So next week's episode featuring Dr. Will O'Connor will help you through Will's many sharings, better understand the world and implementation of how to use running power in your training. So until next week, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.